Inravio.com.
Hello again, everybody. This is Joe Larson, and you're watching the 5 Off, 5 On Racing Show. Welcome to another night of race talk. It should be good. The top 3 series were in Atlanta this weekend. We have some stuff to talk about with that, and so an announcement out of the modified touring series and some of the changes they're going to have as well. It'll be a good one. But before we get into any of that, just to let everybody know, the NASCAR Wheel and Modified Tour will begin their season March 18th at Myrtle Beach Speedway in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. And it'll be interesting to see how many of the northern teams head down for this event. Now, traditionally, for as long as I could remember, the original or initial race of the NASCAR Wheel and Modified was at the Thompson Motorsports Park, formerly the Thompson Motor Speedway, for the annual Icebreaker. But there's been some schedule changes, and the tour will be starting off in Myrtle Beach, and where most of the teams, or some of the teams, went to Myrtle Beach earlier in this year, in the cold weather time, and went to Myrtle Beach for a non-points race, tour-type modifieds, just to check it out, to test out the waters and kind of dial in some things and go home and write it down and come back and do better. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. But I don't see all of the northern teams going, even though it's the first event. And to miss that first event, that kind of puts you behind the 8 ball points-wise. And also, I'll be curious to see how many of the southern teams race right in their own backyards, go right in and go race that event. So it should be interesting as well. The K&M Pro Series East, after a race in New Smyrna, Florida during Speed Weeks, the K&M Pro Series East will head to, Greenville Pickens Speedway in South Carolina on April 8th. Kind of a strange break there. You race and you have 2 months off, but that's the schedule makers. That's what they do. K&M Pro Series East. It's funny. That thing's been called so many things over the years. It used to be the Busch North, because it fed the Busch Series back in those days. And then it became the Camping World Truck Series for a year. It was unsponsored for a while. And then K&A stepped forward. The K&M Pro Series is the K&M Pro Series East and West, which used to be the old Winston West Series, back when Winston was still in the fold with NASCAR. But the K&M Pro Series now it's developed into, and I hate to say this, a development program, because most of the teams are owned by Cup owners, most. And when you look at that, a lot of people kid around and say, the K&M Pro Series, it stands for, kids and nephews, which is really not the right thing to say. But it's a series. K&M Filters has put up a lot of money to make that happen. So just a continued thank you to K&M for their support of the K&M Pro Series East and West. But it's a series that when you look at some of the guys who came through the ranks, Chase Elliott was one that stands to mind, Ryan Blaney, Moffitt, these guys all were in the K&M Pro Series. And they raced for, Michael Waltrip Racing had a team there. Joe Gibbs Racing had a team there. So it was interesting to see how these guys have gone on to become top-notch drivers in a series that was used as, in my opinion, a development series. So it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. If they get the continued success that they're going to have moving forward. So it's all good. It's all good. And the Modified Touring Series. Yes. The Modified Touring officials announced recently changes to the format for the title. The series will run 10 events in 2017. 12 drivers will advance to a chase-type format to determine its champion. The first 5 events of this season will set that the 12 teams that will advance to the 4-race championship segment. And then the season points will be the basis on a system of 1 point per position, with 2 bonus points awarded to the race winner. A win in the first 5 events will advance a team automatically into the next segment, and the rest of the field will be determined by points. Sorry about that. At race 6, the points for the 12 teams in the championship segment will be reset to 300, with bonus points for each win transferring only to race 6. No elimination will be held after race 6. However, after race 7, the 2 lowest teams in the point standard will be eliminated, in the 12, I should say, will be eliminated, and with the race winner guaranteed to advance. 4 eliminated after race 8, 1 eliminated after race 9, then 5 teams will vie for the title race in race 10, and the top 5 in points will be zeroed out. And the finishing order will determine where they finished in the final point tally. So basically, they're kind of mirroring what the Cup did and the Xfinity and Trucks did when they had the chase. Should be kind of interesting. Basically, what they're trying to do is make your race to win instead of ride around. And I understand that. And I don't know if a chase format or type of thing is what they should do, but I'm sure the powers to be decided, let's change this around, because what we're doing isn't working. And that's another series where you tend to run away with the points, you know. It happens sometimes in a modified series where some years, 2 or 3 guys go into that last event with an opportunity to be the champion, and then there's some years the guy who's first in points could stay home that last race and still win the championship, even if the second place guy won. But I noticed that NASCAR, not only in the top 3 series, but also in the touring series, which includes both K&N Pro Series East and West, the Mexico Series, the Canadian Tire Series up north, the NASCAR Euro, and the Modified Series, now that there's no more Southern Modified Series. They're trying to do things to entice not only the fans, but the teams as well. And what's missing there, and I could say this from an insider, what's missing there is they're not getting input from the teams. Now, some people will say, well, then you got to let the inmates run the asylum. I know in my tenure on the NASCAR Whelen Modified Tour, we met with key owners, and I say key owners, guys who had been there for a long time. Art Barry, Bob Garbarino, guys like that, the bowlers. You sat down and you talked. You didn't talk necessarily about, what do you guys need? You talked about what can we do to make the series better. And I look back in those days, and there were 50 and 60 cars showing up for 34 spots, 36 spots, and a lot of cars went home. And one of the things that needed to be worked out is you needed to show up at these events, and you couldn't, how do I put this? A lot of the owners, they would bypass NASCAR and go right to the track owners, the track operators. They'd go to Don Honig at Thompson, Connecticut. They'd go to the Roots in Stafford Springs, Connecticut. They'd go to those guys, the people who were running what was called then the Waterford Speedball, and talk about new money, more money, we need more money, we need more money, pay us more. Yet they'd show up with $1 million haulers, I kid you not, double stackers, and then they'd go run one of the other touring series that paid like $1,000 or $1,500 to win. And I can remember Ed Cox telling these guys, continue running those other shows, and he called them outlaw shows, and you're going to get your purse cut. And lo and behold, that's happened. And now there's so many modified touring series out there that it's kind of watered down. And what's happened, it's like when a track starts a new division. People in the back of the pack of their division, let's say the Street Stocks, hey, I'm kind of running the back of the pack. Hey, wait a minute, there's this new division starting. Let's build a car for that, and we could, get a top 5 every week, And what's happened, and I've seen this firsthand, and let's just say you have 100 drivers, you have 5 divisions, you have 100 drivers. That's 20 in each. It works out great. Well, then what happens? You start a new division. Well, new guys and gals aren't going to come out of the woodwork and say, oh, I think I'm going to get that division. No, you get like the 3 or 4 back markets on the other one. So now what happens is you don't have 20 cars in each division. You have like 16. But your new division has 16 too. And then, oh, let's start another division. Somebody goes, oh, they run these cars here. Let's do that. And that's what's happened. That's why you're not getting full fields in your weekly racing series, because you've watered down. You have 4, 5, 6, 7 divisions in some facilities. You know, and I hate when I say back in my day, but back in my day, when I raced at ISO Speedway in the 70s, there were 2 divisions, modifieds, figure eights. If you had money, you ran a modified. If you didn't, you drove figure eights. But you can make money driving figure eights because it had a pretty doggone good payoff. They'd bring in the midgets every once in a while, have a demolition day every once in a while. They'd bring in something else from somewhere. They'd bring the bombers, as they called them, from the Riverhead days and the Freeport days, and do a combo race with them. You know, that's one of the things that's happened. I can remember, you know, I know I've said this before, but I started 33rd in the Consti once, and they're taking 2. 33rd. 20 cars already qualified. That's how many cars we had in the figure eights back in those days. But like I said, it was you had a choice, figure eights or modifieds. Then they came out with this ladies division, you know, at the Speedway, and that kind of progressed because there was only a couple of ladies, and maybe had like 8 or 10, and then they let a couple of the novice guys, or guys who never really raced before, come in, and they changed it to the novice division. And because you were supposed to be a novice, you know, hardly ever raced, never really raced. And then all of a sudden it got a little serious, and the novice division became what we now call the Charger division. And it just kind of grew and grew and grew at the time, but now there's no more Charger division. It's kind of gone. So, you know, looking at those things and changes that come to play, sometimes I wish I was a track operator, because I know my theories would work. You don't need 5 and 6 divisions. And everybody's like, oh, you know, I feel bad for the guys who have these cars. But I'm like, oh, it's not my problem what they do with those cars. You know, does the supermarket in the neighborhood, when they stop carrying your brand of, I don't know, bread, what about the people that buy that bread? They don't care. You're going to buy another loaf. You know what I'm saying? And racing is a business just like everything else. And as a track operator, you need to make money. You need to put cars in the pit area. You need to put people in the pit area. And cars in the pit equal behinds in the seats. Without cars, you don't have people in the seats. You got to get the cars there. And let's face it, if there's no cars there, nobody's coming to watch. And that's what you need to do. And when I look at racetracks that have, you know, all these other divisions, and, you know, and I know scheduling now, the way they schedule things, you know, you don't race all the time, which I think that's absurd. You know, you got to look at the schedule, then you look at a calendar, and you're looking, oh yeah, we get, and then, you know, God forbid you have 2 weeks off, and then you have a rain out when you're scheduled to race, and you have another 2 weeks, so you can go for like 5 weeks without racing. You know, how do you sell that to a sponsor? How do you sell that to a sponsor? How do you go to a sponsor and say, yeah, we race from April, October, and that's 26 weeks, and we race 10 times. Sponsor thinks, oh, what are you, a part-time racer? I want to sponsor a full-time team. Well, that's kind of the way it is now. That's a tough sell. That's a tough sell to a sponsor. You know, well, like I know there was a time when one of my drivers won a heat race. It was a heat race, but you know, you like to use that checker flag picture to show sponsors that you have a win. And he looks in the grandstand, it was like 4 people. He goes, who's seeing this? I said, well, is this a qualifying event? You know, I don't know. You know, but just one of those things, and it's gotta get better. It's gotta get better, because, you know, the new blood isn't really coming in. You know, and I say new blood, when you look at any track across North America, when you look at the guys who were racing and gals who were racing there today, some of them are 2nd and 3rd generation drivers. And you would think that's good. Oh, that's great. Oh, It is, but that means no new blood's coming in. Without new blood, there's no growth. Without growth, shut the gate, put the padlock on it. Now, I don't mean to sound so negative, but just talking what I feel here. Talking what I feel. But anyway, we're going to take a break, and we come back. We'll talk about some things that are going on in the race in Atlanta when we come back.
Hey, this is Chris Jake, and if Inravio.com spots you at an event wearing this bracelet, they will give you $100.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop, 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Welcome back. I see Long Island Need for Speed is talking about a new series type of thing, a Long Island Vintage Auto Racing Series, LIVARs, which will be racing here on Long Island. It's one of those things that are all over the place, these vintage places, and for some reason it never was popular on Long Island because the guys that lived off of Long Island, I should say, not necessarily out of state, found it just very expensive to come to Long Island, to get over the bridges, the tunnels, or whatever, and all the tolls, and plus what it took to get out here. Because once you go out to the racetrack, it's the end of Long Island. The only way to get back home is 100 miles west and find a bridge or a tunnel, whether you're going to New England or you're going into Pennsylvania, upstate New York, or down south. And you have a promoter here in Long Island who is promoting this, and that's a good thing. Because these vintage guys, these cars, it's always, I say cool to watch these old cars race and some of the old drivers. And they had their initial meeting, I believe, this past weekend. And 12 cars have committed. Hopefully all 12 show up. It'll be nice to see the old cars out there. And when you look at the old cars, I was up at a racetrack up in Connecticut, and there was, I'm trying to remember which track it was, but I was up at this track, and there was an old Chris Young modified back from his ISO Speedway days, and it was painted up the way Chris Young did it, and it really looked like a Chris Young car. And as I got closer to it, there was something distinguished about a Chris Young car, whether it was his figure 8 car or his modified, and every one of his cars had one of these. And I said to the guy, "Is this car, really a Chris Young car?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, and can I take a peek inside?" So I peeked inside, and right there on the drive shaft tunnel was a bar with a hand grip on it, and every one of Chris Young's cars had that. And I can remember I had the opportunity in practice to take Chris Young's car out and do some laps. And I'm buckling in. I said, "Hey, Chris, come here." And he stuck in. "Hey, what's the matter?" I said, "What's that for?" Because I'm figuring he had some intricate thing to move weights around or something. He goes, "That's to hold on." So I was like, "Oh, okay." So yes, and Kevin was Waterford, the New London Waterford Speedboat. And you look at these cars, and some of them are the real thing, just I'm not even going to say updated, but rebuilt. And some of them are just copycats. And if you're a good guy with this old stuff, you could tell. And I'm not that good at that. I just knew the Chris Young cars because I remember I was in awe of him when he was racing figure 8 cars and tearing up the place and winning just about everything there was back in the late 70s and mid 70s. And when he had that Maverick, which I believe is still around, that Maverick figure 8 car. I'm not sure. I think it's down in Jersey or Pennsylvania. But, you know, to look at these old cars, and again, when I was at the Waterford, New London Waterford Speed Bowl, there was a guy who won the 1965 Modified Championship there. Now, here's a guy, you know, you're talking 50 years ago that he won this championship. Now he's in his mid-70s. He gets in his old car for a vintage race. And this guy was racing like it was 1965, let me tell you. And he went for a pass and he stuffed it in the wall. Now my first concern is, here's a guy in his mid to late 70s. He just popped the wall at a good rate of speed. And he got out, he brushed himself off. What did he? I'm okay, you know. I don't know how he was feeling the next morning. But these guys race, they don't just ride around. They don't just ride around and just, you know like some people have said, and some of these nostalgic race clubs do, is they pick out of a hat and, okay, car 3 is going to win today. And car 3 will start in the back and he'll work his way through the field and the announcers involved. It's kind of like WWE sometimes, but they work his way through the field. Keep an eye on that car 3. And then, 2 to go, he's door handle with the leader, and then, the white flag comes and they go side by side into the corner, come down the backstretch, and he makes that turn 4 pass and makes it exciting, But yeah, it's just fun. And yes, 22 figure 8. I believe that's who has the car, Artie Shankfeld. Artie purchased one of my old figure 8 cars, was gonna do something with it. It'll be interesting to see what he does with that thing, but I hated to see it go. But anyway, Atlanta, weekend in Atlanta. Nice racetrack, in my opinion. It's just a little bit shy of 1.5 miles. Speeds upwards of 195 miles an hour. And it was some event. Brad Keselowski was the winner there, with Kyle Larson finishing 2nd. Matt Kenseth was 3rd. Casey Kane 4th. Chase Elliott was 5th. Joey Logano 6th. Kurt Busch 7th. Martin Truex Jr. was 8th. Kevin Harvick 9th. And Jamie McMurray rounding out the top 10. Pole's winner, Kevin Harvick, as we said earlier, he was finished 9th in that event. 39 cars showed up for 40 spots. Let's say that again. 39 cars showed up for 40 spots. Something wrong. Where are the cars? Where are the cars? And if you were NASCAR and you made it that you can only have one car in the series, there'd probably be about 12. Because who owns 4, who owns 5, what team owns 3? And that's a scary situation. Is the Cup Series in trouble? I'm not going to say they're in trouble, because racing across the board worldwide is suffering problems with car counts. And when you look at that, when you say, what are we going to do here? What can you do? The sanctioning bodies are doing everything they can to make the racing interesting. The teams are trying to do their part to promote the series. What do you do? What do you do? 39 cars show up. Now, you have the 38 charter teams and 36 charter teams, and so a couple of teams that maybe would have made it now got into it. So now qualifying is like, okay, well, almost why bother at that point? But you have to go through the motions. But 39 cars, and I know there was Daytona was a wreck fest. They tore up a lot of equipment. But when you're at that level, you don't just have one car. You have a slew of cars. So why weren't some of these teams here? Why were they not there? Atlanta, it's a nice paying race. It's a nice racetrack to drive on. But a handful of guys decided they were going to stay home. They were going to stay home. And speaking of Atlanta, Speedway Motorsports, Inc., which is the owner of Atlanta Motor Speedway, its president, Marcus Smith, was listening to Cup drivers regarding the repaving project, which was to begin like this week. Drivers lobbied for a delay, saying the pavement, although 20 years old, its gritty surface places a premium on tires and tire wear and car control. You got to drive. You got to drive this. Some drivers mentioned a short track driver or a dirt track driver would love the current pavement. At that speed, you got to drive your car. And that's all these guys want to do. They want to drive their racetrack. They don't want to show up at a racetrack and flat-foot it and go. They don't want to do that. They want to race. They want to have fun racing. And I know, talking to some figure eight guys, when the figure eight course on Long Island was underwater and they had to run oval, they were bored. They were bored because it was straightaway, 3-4 seconds, turn, 3-4 seconds, straightaway, 3-4 seconds, turn. To them, that wasn't fun. See, they like doing that figure eight stuff, and there is a difference, and 22 figure eight could tell you that. But the track had multiple grooves. You could go high, you could go low, you could go in the middle. And you could see sometimes coming off the corners, they were doing that, almost that dirt track. And not the full dirt track, but they had to turn right to go left in some of the corners. Like I said, that was supposed to happen. I mean, they were supposed to start doing it like this week. But Marcus Smith, the son of Bruton Smith, who is the founder of Speedway Motorsports, Inc., is listening to the drivers. Listening. Again, like I said earlier, do you let the inmates run the asylum? Well, no. But when they have a valid suggestion, you have to have an open mind to that. You have to sit back and say, wow, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because what's missing, again, in racing, and from my point of view, is racing. They're just getting in a straight line. They're just hanging out. And now with the brakes and the, 60 laps, 80 laps, whatever, and you get points for, yeah, there's a little bit of slicing and dicing, but for the most part, kind of just riding around, saving tires, saving equipment, avoiding the wrecks, because you want to be there at the end. Well, at a track like Atlanta, that's a racy racetrack. You didn't have the carnage that you had at Daytona, but you had some good hard racing, some good side-by-side thing, and you had some bumping and grinding. That's racing. That's what the fans want to see. They want to see that kind of racing. And, I was just talking to my daughter recently during the Daytona 500, and she goes, you go to the Daytona 500, you pay all this money for your seat, to any race. She's been to Martinsville, too. The cars they're starting to coming off the corner, and you stand up and you watch. Then you sit down. You stand up, watch, and you sit down. She said, why have a seat? You're standing most of the time, But what are you watching? They're going by you in a line. There's no passing, and there's no bumping and grinding, go back. And I wish there was a racing channel on TV that showed the old Grand National, now known Cup races. Show some of those. And yeah, there was some beating and some banging. And if you passed, you got past, certain guys there, you earned that pass. And you didn't pass it without tearing some paint off your car. It was good, hard racing, And then, Richard Petty came in and he's riding on their bumpers and he's getting the air off the spoilers and he's only half throttle because they're breaking the air, and all of a sudden he shoots to the outside or the inside, and he goes slingshot past them because he has all that extra power. He kind of invented that. Like the Wood brothers invented the pit stop. It was poetry in motion. And when they broke the 20-second pit stop, like, whoa, and then they were, like 15 seconds, oh my God. Then they broke 10. These guys are now doing pit stops in 5-6 seconds, but it's not, again, not how it used to be. And I can remember, coming down pit road, there was no pit road speed limits. Yeah, it was a little dangerous. And I can remember a story that Chad Little shared with us. Chad Little, now he's the series director of the Camping World Truck Series. And he was racing for Jack Roush in the John Deere car. And he wasn't coming into the pits fast enough. Chad, you got to go fast. You got to go fast. You got to go fast. So he's at Daytona, and he's going to come in faster. And when he came, he saw his spotter was saying, in 3, 2, 1, and you turn in. When he turned in and hit the brakes, he just looped it, and the right rear quarter smashed the ball, and it was not good. It was not good. And a little footnote to that: when Chad Little lost his ride at Roush, he was replaced by Kurt Busch. Little trivial thing that I decided I'd share with you. Yes, many a nights out with Chad after the tour races. Anyway, speaking of NASCAR Executive Vice President and Chief Racing Development Steve O'Donnell says NASCAR is in the midst of schedule discussions for 2018, as well as potential changes and a realignment request from numerous tracks. Basically what Steve O'Donnell is saying, there are traditional dates and tracks and how many races each team has or each track has may change in 2018. Daytona, which is NASCAR's Super Bowl, the first race of the year, wasn't always that way. Riverside, California was usually the first one. Everybody went out to Riverside and you had 2 weeks off, and then you went to Daytona back in the good old days. Remember, after Daytona, you went to Rockingham. Some of those tracks, some of the best racing was at The Rock, as they called it, North Wilkesboro. I'd like to see some of those places come back into the fold. But there's tracks that only have one date that are looking for two. There's tracks that have two that they might take away one. And I know Bruton Smith's Speedway Motorsports Incorporated, they're looking for more dates. And they'll even give up a date at one track to get an extra date at another track. So it should be interesting how that folds out, because tradition sometimes needs to be broken. And what's happening now isn't really that good. The product that they're putting in front of the fans isn't as good as it once was. So they have to do something. They've tried rule changes. They've tried different cars. Who could forget the car tomorrow with the fins and the nose and all this other nonsense? That didn't work. That just didn't work anyway. Speaking of not working, car 47 of A.J. Allmendinger was found to have 3 loose lug nuts. And actually, there was 3 lug nuts, as the penalty reads, not secured following post-race inspection after the Atlanta race. Allmendinger finished 3rd at Daytona, only finished a dismal 26th in Atlanta. According to the rulebook, if 3 or more lug nuts are missing or unsecured in post-race inspection, it is called an L1 level penalty, with a 3-race suspension for the crew chief, a $65,000 fine, and a deduction of 35 championship points. Allmendinger, currently 11th in the Cup points, has 50 points. They take away 35, he'll have 15. His crew chief, Randall Barrett, is at a loss for words as to how that could happen. And I don't think in this day and age any team is going to try to save time on pit road and leave 3 lugs out of 5 unsecured. And I think this is a little harsh. That's something that it could happen, but there's a lot that can make a lug nut loose. And these guys that are changing tires, this isn't something that they just do. They practice all week long. They practice and practice, and they have overhead cameras, and they look at the film, and this is what we can do better. And that's not something you play games with. Are there some areas you can't? Yeah. I know of a fabricator who changed the threads, or had different lugs that had a different thread so that the lug nut went on faster, but only maybe by 1/10 of a second or 2/10 of a second, times 5 on each wheel. Save time. NASCAR outlawed it. His ingenuity got him a pat on the back instead of a big suspension because it wasn't in the rule. But It's kind of interesting how that happened. This is you get a level 1 penalty, L1 level penalty. That's tough. That's tough to come back for. That's real tough to come back for. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But, you know, there was another car too that I think the winning car from Atlanta, Keselowski, he had issues in tech. Also, Kurt Busch had issues in tech, and after winning the Xfinity race, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so did Elliott Sadler, but he didn't have problems with that. He was the random car. But that's kind of, I'm going to talk about the random car in a little bit. But, you know, we're going to take a break, and I'm going to talk about that when we come back.
Village Music Shop of Mastic. 1-800-HEY-DUDE. Your full-service store with personalized attention, school band instrument rentals and sales, music instruction on all instruments for all styles and age groups, for guitars, drums, amplifiers, PA systems, and accessories. It's Village Music Shop. 1495 Montauk Highway in Mastic. Call 1-800-HEY-DUDE or go to villagemusicshop.com.
Hi, my name is Aaron from Real Big Fish.
And I'm Ed from Real Big Fish.
And you're watching the Inravio TV network.
Hey, welcome back. Xfinity Series, Atlanta Motor Speedway. Kyle Busch winning from the pole. Second, Brad Keselowski. Third, Kyle Larson. Fourth, Kevin Harvick. Fifth, Elliott Sadler, the first Xfinity driver across the line earning points, as the Cup guys don't get points. Darrell Wallace Jr. was sixth. William Byron was seventh. Austin Dillon eighth. Daniel Hemrick ninth. Cole Custer rounded out the top 10. Yes. The next race will be in Las Vegas. That'll be this Saturday. The Cup will be there this Sunday. Winning car driven by Kyle Busch. Car failed, like I said, post-race inspection for a height violation. Both the right front and left front were too low. Too low. The winning car will be taken to the NASCAR R&D Center in Concord, and that means they kind of go over it with a fine-tooth comb. Now, I always wondered this with that too low in post-race. I know the rule book says you have to be a certain height, and this has to be a certain height, and they have the template gauges and all this nonsense. My job when I worked some of these other series, sometimes there was a thing, and I had to measure the front air dam, and I had to measure the chassis, and there's a lot of things that could affect that post. It was good when it left. So did they dial it lower and make it low? I don't know, maybe, when you're coming for a pit stop, take some in, take some out. But did the tires then cool off enough that they were a little bit smaller, or they lost some air? I've seen this happen so many times, when they do that. I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those things. I don't know. And with the DQ, and one of the things that Bill France said way back when is that, and this is because there was a race, the winner got disqualified, and everybody went home thinking this guy won, and then the next day in the papers, he didn't win. And people were up in arms. So Bill France says, that'll never happen again. The win will stay. Whoever gets to check a flag and a trophy and the pictures and a kiss from the trophy girl, whatever, will stay. There's a points penalty and a monetary penalty. And you know what? That's one of the things that I wish weekly tracks would do. I really do. And I remember I tried to do that. I said, what we should do is fine that person what first place paid. So whether, if it was a low, I'm still going to call it the lower end division that got like $100 to win, their fine will be $100. And the top feature division, their fine should be $1,500. Basically, you don't get your payoff. It goes into the NASCAR fine kitty. And you lose the points. You don't get any points. Yeah, you keep the hardware, keep the picture, Because, I know so many, when I've seen this happen in weekly tracks, now the second place guy, he's all excited. They go out, they get their picture. Dude, you didn't win. And you guys say, oh, well, he cheated. I don't know. Maybe the disqualifying offense wasn't a cheating offense. I mean, yeah, the rule book says X, Y, Z, and if they didn't do that, okay, is that cheating? I don't know. Because your front end's too low by, an eighth of an inch. Come on. And I've seen it at some weekly tracks where they don't like that guy, so they're going to find something wrong. Or the track pet finished second. We're going to find something wrong with the guy who came in first. And I've seen that. And I can remember one night that in the division, and my kid was racing, and she finished like ninth. So the first place guy protested the second place guy, and the second place guy protested the first place guy. And before you knew it, the top 8 finishers were illegal because they had to keep bringing new ones to the scales. And I said, well, what is that illegal? And they said what it was. It was front end parts. And I says, well, I guess I'm the winner because I have what you're supposed to have. And once I said that, they went in their office, got a piece of paper, and they read the rule. That day, that night. 1 through 8 was reinstated. And whatever. I mean, I wouldn't want to win a race that way, but that just goes to show you what they'll do when they don't want you to win a race. But yeah, and also the 5th place finisher, Elliott Sadler, in the Xfinity race at Atlanta, his car was picked up random, which will go to the R&D center as well. Not a random car. Let me tell you about the random car. I'm doing pre-race tech. It's my job. And I'm supposed to check this, that, and the other thing, and I'm checking this, that, and the other thing. And one of the crew chiefs was giving me a real hard time. Now, understand, like, those from the Riverhead days that knew me, I found something when I went to the higher series. I was always smiling. I didn't get into it with people. I always, if they yelled at me, which is very rare, and that level of racing, they're very rare, I said, I hate when that happens. I'm really sorry. And, we go on and on. Well, this one guy was breaking my shoes so bad that I had to actually walk away. Imagine that. I walked away, went back to the hauler, had a drink of water, had some fruit, and I went and finished my thing. He still wants to break my shoes. And a little insight, it was 4 weeks in a row I asked him, or 4 races in a row, not necessarily weeks, I asked him to change something that was, in my opinion, could be a problem, a safety problem. Not so much that you're not going to let it out, but enough that it needs to be fixed. I didn't have a chance. And here we are in Mansfield, Ohio. The guy drove 1,500 miles one way to get there, and it wasn't changed, and he was breaking my chops about it. And I said, you know what? This is what you're going to do. He's thinking I'm going to say, we'll just cover it up with tape or something. No, it was a hole in the firewall. And it's not, what we're going to do is you're going to load it up and go home because you're not racing today. And he starts yelling at me. I just drove all this way, whatever. And, we went back and forth. So I said, just load it up. You're not going. So I didn't turn in his inspection sheet because he didn't pass. I just put a big red circle on it. And now all of a sudden I see him going out for practice. I get on the radio, stop that car, they stop it, and he played dumb and whatever. So ultimately he had to fix this thing, and he just got it fixed just in time to go out to time trial. And he finished time trial in mid-pack, whatever. Now it's the race. He finished 18th. He was the random car. Just saying. I'm not saying it had anything to do with him breaking my chops, but he became the random car. And if they don't like you, or you do stuff to tick them off, like the disappearing leak that Jay Slice just brought up. Let me explain that one. Double point race, tour night. The local officials knew that Joe was going to be professional and quiet because my NASCAR bosses are there because I'm working the tour race. Double points. We have a halfway decent qualifying effort. We mid-pack, we worked our way up to maybe fourth or third or something. And all of a sudden, and I'm up on the ramp because, they can't tell me to get off because I'm with NASCAR that night. And I hear them talking. And all of a sudden, I hear them say, I go, well, black flag them. Black flag the 34. I looked over, I said, what? Leaking. There's smoke coming out of it. That's not leaking. If it was leaking, there'd be no smoke. And it wasn't a lot of smoke. It was just enough to be annoying, I guess. So my driver, there's no radios. My driver pulls into the infield, and he says to the infield guy, what am I here for? So that guy gets on the radio. They say you're leaking. They get out, there's no leak. No leak. He sits there because they did it early in the race. We're only 6 or 7 laps into it, and my driver worked his way up to the near the front in no time. And there's no leak. So he sits out there for almost an hour, because the race took an hour, 25 laps, double points. It was a wreck fest. And then he drives it back to our trailer. Still no leak. I asked the officials very politely, can you show me where this leak is from? I don't have time. What do you mean you don't have time? You have one division, the rest is tour. I don't have time. Okay. Put in a trailer, no leak. They were hoping that I'd be silly. I wasn't going to be silly. I couldn't let that happen. Now we get the car back into the shop, and what it was is some guy that was running in front of us was soaking tires, and all his tire junk ended up on the header, and that's what was smoking. And if they would have took the time, see, every other driver that would have had that issue, they would have put him in the white box and looked for the leak. But, it was me. It was me. And they didn't want me out there. They didn't want us to do well. And so it was right after that we reinstituted a long-standing club that was called DAPO. Yeah, you did, Jay Slice. But DAPO, Drivers Against the Poor Officiating. Jay Slice, my crew chief, went out and had T-shirts made up, and there we were. And Bill Park, he was a modified driver here long at the time. He was the founding father of DAPO. And Mighty Mike Mortimer, late model driver, he was like number 2 in charge. He actually rented a plane with a banner that just circled the track that said DAPO. And whatever. And Jay Slice is right. I think that was because after the tour was done, I kind of was not a happy camper. And, it was funny because Jay Slice said to me one time when they first started driving, he goes, you show no emotion whether we do well or come off on the hook. We didn't do. We didn't do. So they don't remember the old me. I don't know if anybody's in the channel. 22 figure 8 might remember the old me. Back in the day. Asked to leave many of a racetrack. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. What do we got? We had about, what, 10 minutes left, right? So we're going to take a break now real quick. When we come back, we'll do the Camping World Truck Series and kind of wrap up some of the racing stuff that's going on when we come back.
Hey, I'm Raul Panther.
And I'm Commander B. Hawkins.
And I'm Mark Well. We're some of the proto men. If we see you without this bracelet, you're gonna punch in the. But if you have this bracelet from Inravio.com, you can win $100.
Put one of these on, or else.
The world of advertising has changed. Radio, TV, and newspaper revenues have declined drastically. Why? Because businesses have realized that advertising return on investment isn't what it used to be. So what can we do about it? Well, that's easy. Advertise online. Own a local restaurant, real estate agency, or even a national retail chain? Whatever your business, Inravio can get your message out there. And we can do it at a fraction of the cost. Call today and see the difference for yourself. This isn't TV. This isn't radio. This is Inravio.com.
Hi there, this is Buddy from Less Than Jake, and you are listening to Inravio TV. You're probably watching it too.
Welcome back. You know, I look at things in the chat room that I missed, and Jay Slice, he had it right. He just wrote charcoal in springs. And everybody's probably wondering, what the heck is he talking about? You know, charcoal in springs. Well, the minimum height rule, to figure it out, was 45 inches. 45 inches. And they made this, the late Carl Rackoff made this little device that measured it. And it was a little thing that when you drove your car, it had a touch. It had a touch. Now, if it didn't touch, your car was too low. You know, so I knew my car was low, and I wasn't a front runner, but you know they made this fancy tool. They were gonna take people down and leave me alone. I'm running in a mid-pack finish to me was like a win, and I was like, wow, man, what are we gonna do? And I says, well, let's see what they're gonna do. You know, maybe we could just like blow up the tires real big, go through it, and let the air out. But no, they set it up like right at the base of the ramp. So you had to go right on the track. So I had to come up with a different solution here. So what I did was we always barbecued after the races. So we jacked the car up and we put charcoal briquettes in between the springs. And then we let it down real easy. I drove real easy, started up and drove it real easy, and I went under the thing, and it just touched. Now, I knew because they were charcoal briquettes, they crush easy. Once I got on the track, I nailed the gas, braking the ones in the back, and I slammed the brakes, broke the ones in the front, and, it was all good. Good memories, Jay Slice, good memories. The things you got to do. But anyway, the Camping World Truck Series was at Atlanta. Yes, what do we have here? Christopher Bell won from the pole. Matt Crafton was second. Johnny Sauter third. Ben Rhodes was fourth, followed by Chase Elliott in fifth. Alex Bowman was sixth. Austin Dillon seventh. Gravett Enfinger was eighth. Timothy Peters, ninth, and rounding out the top 10 was Ross Chaston. The next race for the Camping World Truck Series will be April 1st in Martinsville. One of my favorite places to watch a truck race. It was good. You know, it's good. I love Martinsville, but it's been a while since I've been down to Martinsville. Because, and Martinsville's not too bad, but you go to some of these other places, they just jack up the prices, and it's not good. But anyway, hey, just a reminder, April 17th, the Monday after Easter weekend, we will be having our anniversary show. It's show number 300, 6 years and counting. Starting this gig in 2011 on a favor, and to an old buddy of mine, Chuck Schultz, and Bonnie, his wife Bonnie, and it was the host at the time was this guy Henry Boston, and it was funny. It was like almost like an Abbott and Costello routine. He was like the straight man, and I was the funny guy, and and then Henry went out to Bonneville with a car he built to break the land speed record. He never came back. I could do this for a couple of weeks by myself, and the next thing I know, it's just me. But we've been doing this a long time, and we have some special stuff planned for for that evening. We have going to have a live studio audience, and then some people did get some evites, I guess you could call them, to please come down and check it out. We'll have some snacks and some good stuff. We'll talk some good racing, and the good thing, and I say the good thing, is no cup race on Easter Sunday, so there's not a lot to talk about race-wise. There'll be some stuff Friday night and Saturday, but we'll get right to that. But we have some stuff planned, and it's if you've ever seen an anniversary show, if you saw number 250, number 200, 150, 100, 50 at the first year, it was all good. Each one was kind of better than the previous one, and this one is going to top all of those. It's going to be big. 300. Who would have thought? Who would have thought 300? Last year we had Riverhead Raceway announcer and former PR director for many, many years at Riverhead, Bobby Finan, was there long. MyRaceNews.com's new owner, Mike Jarwicki, was here, as well as one of our favorite guests, Roger Oxy, who makes this trip from upstate New York to Long Island. So, and 22 figure eight, he's going to be here. Another guy that very rarely misses a show, Kevin Basicline and Need for Speed, has expressed interest that he will be here as well. A lot of people are going to be here. A lot of people are going to be here that day, and it's going to be good. It's going to be good. I'm actually, and I know I tell people I don't get too excited about things, but I'm actually excited about this. The fact that it's 300 shows, man, 300 shows. Hey, can you believe that? 300 shows, 300 shows, and they haven't pulled the plug on me yet. So it's 300 shows, unbelievable. So anyway, so mark it on your calendar. If you want to come down, let me know. And if you're gonna, if there's any show that you're gonna watch, that's the one you might want to watch, and it'll be good. I'm working on some surprise stuff, some stuff that's just gonna take this right to the next level. So I'm looking forward to it. Look forward to you guys and gals being a part of it as well. And speaking of you guys and gals, I want to thank you again for being a part of this, taking time out of your busy schedule, whether you're just watching online, watching and participating in the chat room, or you're going to catch it during the week. Thank you. And wherever your endeavors are going to bring you this week, I know racing's starting to get ready. Just please be safe. Please be careful. Give somebody a hug. Tell them you love them. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.